Hola gente, tenemos a Alex DeCampi, una profesional y una innovadora en el campo de los cómics, y también una mujer, muy importante todos los logros que tiene y lo que nos quiere decir. Vamos a ver un poco lo que hace, vamos a leer los subtítulos, le voy a preguntar unas cosas rápido porque hay mucha gente y ella está dispuesta. So, nice to meet you again, and I am amazed by the amount of work that you put out. So tell me, first, before we talk about these, what you're doing for Dark Horse, I'd like to know where everything started.
Well, in terms of amount of work, the key is always keep working. Like, be working all the time. Even if they don't give you, even if none of the publishers are picking up your phone calls, keep writing. And then you have a lot of power once you've written the book already. Because it's not like, oh, will she do it? Oh, you know, you go and you say, hey, I've written 2 issues of this book already. I have an artist who wants to draw it. Can we publish it? And they're like, oh, okay. And then things take forever to be published in comics. I mean, I have series that I wrote last year that won't be coming out for 2 years because I'm waiting for time in the artist's schedule. So sometimes it looks like I have 4 books out, but one of them I might have written 4 years before. The other one I wrote last summer. But as long as I keep writing things, I'm okay.
That's great.
And it's funny because a lot of writers will just keep pitching stories, so they'll write the summaries and try to sell them, and they'll write like 20 summaries. But I'm different than that because there aren't 20 things I want to write. I can't like make a baby and then put that baby down and pick up the other baby. Like, I make the baby and then I want to stay with it for a while. So I only pitch the things that I want to write completely, and I will write it completely whether they give me money or not. And if nobody wants it, eventually it will find its way to Kickstarter or some other way like that. But I've been pretty lucky in that not a lot of people do what I do, so publishers have been very good to me.
I think it's an advantage.
Yeah.
A little bit. So now, tell me about your babies.
These are these are 2 of my my naughty babies. Grindhouse is a series I did through Dark Horse of exploitation stories. Each is only 2 issues long, and they're completely independent stories. So you can pick up one story, and you don't have to pick up any of the other ones. They don't connect with each other in any way. And this is, for example, the other story in this trade. And they're just like classic exploitation stories, from the rape revenge to creature features to space exploitation to women in prison to blaxploitation. B-Vixens is almost like Latina exploitation because it stars this Latina Tejana sheriff's deputy. But the way it starts out, everyone thinks like the white Anglo sheriff is, well, everyone in the US, a lot of the male readers thought that the white Anglo sheriff was the hero because obviously he's the white guy. And then let's just say he's not the hero. Issue 2, you find out pretty conclusively that he can no longer be the hero because he dies pretty horribly. And then my Sheriff Garcia, who's this gal, is the hero. And then she comes back in another 2-issue story called Blood Lagoon, which is another creature feature. So this was a tremendous amount of fun, and I didn't know how it would be received because I'm writing essentially what people think of as bad comics,
Sounds it's kind of crude, right? The tone?
Very
realistic.
Like, not so realistic, but very crude, very sexy. Because in the US, like, there's a lot of violence in books, but no sex. Like, not, except in something like Sex Criminals, which became such a big seller because it has sex in it. But if you look at the mainstream comics, the superhero books, so much violence, so much. And so they've taken some of the language of exploitation books, like the very cruel violence to women, the sort of the killings, but they haven't taken any of the fun and any of the sex. which is the U.S. Like No Sex Please, we're American. And these books have a sense of fun and a lot of sex to them as well. And then because I did this, when Dark Horse got called by Archie Comics to do the Archie Predator crossover, they thought, oh, we know who can do this book. And then I got to write 4 issues of wonderful, happy, teenage American drama where the Predator comes and mutilates everybody terribly. And it's like a lot of kids die. Like it's basically a teen slasher movie. It's Final Destination. It's Friday the 13th. It's
for sure.
You know, it's any of those books. Like normally in the Archie crossovers, nobody dies. Like even in Archie Punisher, nobody died. Frank Castle's self-esteem, that died. But here, you know, even in issue 1, so here are 2 teenagers who have been skinned alive by the Predator.
As it should be.
Exactly. You can't have a Predator book where they just like sit down and have sandwiches. And so we were trying to make the Predator audience, like when you take a book like this with 2 really well-loved characters, groups, the Archie teenagers and the Predator, you have to make it a really good Archie book because you have to respect the Archie fans and the history of this book. But you also have to make it a really good Predator book because you have to respect them as well. Luckily, I didn't have much trouble doing that. I found it pretty easy because, you know, I just write a teen slasher. And it's very funny and very, very gross. And everybody involved, we were so happy making it. We had so much fun.
Sounds like it was a load of fun, and it looks like it's a load of fun. I some pages haven't had the time because, you know, we all have side jobs and
the first thing I say about comics is don't give up the day job. It doesn't pay. Like even for me, it barely pays. And you know, you say I have so much work out. I'm like, where is it?
Yeah, kids, especially women. We have wonderful illustrators. I brought you some stickers. If you're around tomorrow, I'll bring you some.
Yes.
From them. And they're wonderful. They're doing things that I know it sounds like a macho thing, but you've seen these kind of illustrations from guys who draw comics.
Yeah.
Or maybe you wouldn't know that someone else is doing the backgrounds for a famous artist that I know, and she lives in a little town in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And she's amazing.
Yeah.
So, tell me about...
But I'm always interested in meeting more artists and stuff, and a lot of the... finally, like, the women in comics in the U.S. are starting to, we all know each other, and there's a lot of us. And we're starting to make our voice heard and protect each other and help all of us rise up.
More cohesive, right? That's what I want from my country. I want them because they're pretty good. They have talent. They work doing concept art for apps, doing demonstrations in small animation studios, or retired in their own towns, like this girl I'm talking about. And they're really powerful. If they knew the power they have in hands,
yes.
Right now, I believe that if they got together, they'd be far more important than the guys. We got really, really good guys. One working with Grant Morrison, he's a 30-year-old guy. They even showed him as a veteran illustrator, which is not right because actually he's not a veteran illustrator. 2 years ago, he was doing infographies for a newspaper. So that doesn't take anything away because his talent is amazing. But we have 3 guys in the industry, and I know that these girls will get in easier.
Although it's, you know, again, it's hard to make money in comics, and one thing the U.S. comic industry has to do is unionize, is make sure we get fair rates, because there are a lot of companies out there, including some of the U.S. comic companies, the indie comic companies, that say, oh, come work for us, we'll give you $40 a page. Yeah, no. And they capitalize on, you know, people who show their art on Tumblr and you know, think it's really great to be employed in comics. And sure, like, the first deal that everybody takes in comics is a bad deal. You're never going to get paid well your first gig. but you should know you're not being paid well. You shouldn't think, oh, you know, these people are being so good to me by letting me work. It's not a favor, you know.
Okay, so let's end. Can you please send a message of empowerment to these girls and hello to Costa Rica before we end?
Absolutely. You can do it. You're just as good as everybody else. You're possibly better. Just keep trying. Every day it takes. You have to keep knocking on the door. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. It took me 4 or 5 projects to get into Dark Horse. And I was already, you know, known fairly well as a name. And I finally just had to make my own book and take it to them and go, look, I made a book. So it takes a long time. Just sometimes it's persistence more than talent. And you have to keep trying and make your voice heard because you